Imagine biting into a piece of mammoth meat that's been cooking underground for 3 days straight. The smoky, rich flavor filling your mouth as your tribe gathers around a fire that hasn't gone out in months. Now imagine that this meal could mean the difference between your family surviving the brutal winter ahead or perishing in the frozen wasteland. What you just imagined wasn't a fantasy. It was Tuesday night dinner for your ancestors 40,000 years ago. And the story of what ancient people ate isn't just about food. It's about survival, innovation, and the incredible journey that led to the feast sitting in your kitchen right now. Picture this. It's 50,000 years ago and your great-great-great. Well, you get the idea. Grandmother is standing at the edge of a cliff, watching a massive woolly mammoth trudge through the snow below. But she's not afraid, she's calculating. Because that mammoth isn't just an animal to her. It's a walking grocery store that could feed her entire tribe for months. Our Paleolithic ancestors were the ultimate meal planners, but their grocery lists looked nothing like yours. While you stress about choosing between organic or regular apples, they were strategizing how to take down a 12,000-pound mammoth with nothing but sharpened sticks and incredible teamwork. The hunt wasn't just about the meat, though. These ancient humans were the original nose-to-tail eaters, wasting absolutely nothing. The mammoth's fat became their cooking oil and preserved food for harsh winters. The bone marrow was their equivalent of a superfood smoothie, packed with nutrients that kept their brains growing larger and more complex. Even the stomach became a cooking pot. But here's where it gets fascinating. They didn't just eat mammoth steaks raw. Archaeological evidence shows they were master chefs, using underground cooking pits that could slow cook meat for days. They'd dig deep holes, line them with hot stones, wrap the meat in hide, and bury it all under earth in more hot coals. The result? Perfectly tender, smoky meat that could be preserved for weeks. And when the mammoth hunting was unsuccessful, they didn't just give up and order takeout. They became incredibly resourceful foragers. While the men were out tracking massive beasts, the women and children became the original botanists, developing an encyclopedia of edible plants that would make modern nutritionists weep with envy. They knew which berries would give them energy for long journeys, which roots could cure stomach ailments, and which leaves could be brewed into teas that would help them sleep during the coldest nights. But perhaps their most ingenious discovery was the humble acorn. Now, if you've ever accidentally bitten into a raw acorn, you know it's incredibly bitter and basically inedible. But ancient humans figured out something amazing. If you shell the acorns, grind them into flour, and repeatedly wash that flour with water to remove the bitter tannins, you get a nutritious, storable staple that could sustain entire communities through harsh winters. This process took days of labor, but it was revolutionary. They had essentially invented agriculture without farming, creating a reliable food source from the forest itself. Native American tribes were still using this technique when European settlers arrived, producing acorn flour that was more nutritious than wheat. And here's something that will blow your mind. These ancient foragers had a more diverse diet than most modern humans. While we eat roughly 30 different plant species regularly, archaeological evidence suggests our Paleolithic ancestors consumed over 200 different plants, nuts, seeds, and fungi. They were eating superfoods we've forgotten even exist. But the real game changer in ancient cuisine happened around 1.8 million years ago, and it started with a single spark. The discovery of fire didn't just give our ancestors warmth and protection. It completely revolutionized what it meant to be human. Before fire, our ancestors spent most of their day chewing. Raw meat is incredibly tough, and raw plants can be hard to digest. Early humans had massive jaws and huge molars just to process their food. But cooking changed everything. Cooked food is easier to chew, easier to digest, and provides more calories with less effort. This wasn't just convenient. It was evolutionary. The energy our ancestors saved by not having to maintain massive chewing muscles was redirected to growing larger brains. Cooking food literally made us smarter as a species. And ancient humans got creative with their cooking methods in ways that would impress modern chefs. They learned to smoke meat for preservation, creating the world's first jerky. They discovered that certain clay soils could be mixed with toxic plants to neutralize the poison, expanding their menu dramatically. They even learned to ferment foods, Early evidence suggests they were making alcoholic beverages from fermented fruits and grains over 10,000 years ago. In some regions, they developed sophisticated cooking techniques using heated stones. They'd heat rocks in fires until they were red hot, then use wooden tongs to drop them into waterproof baskets filled with water and food. This stone boiling technique could bring water to a rolling boil without metal pots, creating the world's first soup kitchens. Then, about 12,000 years ago, everything changed again, in a development that would reshape human civilization forever. People in different parts of the world simultaneously figured out how to grow their own food. But this wasn't just about planting seeds. It was about completely reimagining what it meant to eat. The transition from hunter-gatherer to farmer wasn't immediate or easy. Early wheat was smaller and harder to process than modern varieties. Rice paddies required incredible engineering to create the flooding systems necessary for cultivation. Corn started as a tiny grass called teosinte that looked nothing like the golden cobs we know today. It took thousands of years of selective breeding to create modern corn. But here's what's fascinating. This agricultural revolution happened independently in at least 7 different places around the world. People in the Middle East domesticated wheat and barley. In China, they domesticated rice and millet. In Mesoamerica, corn, beans, and squash. In the Andes, potatoes and quinoa. It was as if the entire human species simultaneously had the same brilliant idea. This shift to agriculture created the first true cuisines. With reliable food sources, people could experiment with flavors, develop cooking techniques, and create the food traditions that would eventually become the dishes we recognize today. The bread your ancestors baked 8,000 years ago shares DNA with the loaf in your kitchen right now. But farming also created new challenges. Hunter-gatherers were generally healthier and taller than early farmers, who suffered from nutritional deficiencies and new diseases that came from living in permanent settlements. The trade-off was stability and population growth, but it came at a cost that our ancestors accepted because the alternative, returning to the uncertainty of hunting and gathering, was no longer viable for their growing communities. Food in the ancient world wasn't just about survival. It was about community, ritual, and social bonding in ways that created the foundation of human civilization. Archaeological evidence from sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is over 11,000 years old, shows that massive feasts were central to early human society. These weren't casual dinner parties. We're talking about events where hundreds of people would gather to consume massive quantities of food together. Archaeologists have found evidence of feasts where ancient people consumed over 1,000 aurochs, ancient cattle, along with countless wild boar, deer, and tons of gathered plant foods. These events required incredible planning, cooperation, and social organization. The act of sharing food created bonds that went beyond individual families or tribes. It established trade networks, created alliances, and spread knowledge about cooking techniques and food sources across vast distances. The spice routes that would later connect Asia, Africa, and Europe had their roots in these ancient food-sharing traditions. And here's something beautiful. Many of the social rituals around food that we take for granted today, saying grace, toasting with drinks, sharing dessert, can be traced back thousands of years to these ancient communal feasts. When you share a meal with loved ones today, you're participating in one of humanity's oldest and most fundamental traditions. From mammoth steaks cooked in underground ovens to the first loaves of bread rising in Neolithic kitchens, the story of what ancient people ate is really the story of us. How we evolved, how we learned to work together, and how we transformed from scattered tribes into the global civilization we are today. Every time you cook dinner, you're using techniques and eating foods that connect you directly to ancestors who lived tens of thousands of years ago. That's not just history, that's magic. If this journey through time's kitchen amazed you as much as it amazed me, absolutely demolish that like button. Subscribe to join our tribe of history lovers and ring that notification bell, because next week, we're diving into another incredible survival story, how ancient humans kept warm. And trust me, their ingenious heating techniques will make you question everything you know about staying cozy in winter. Drop a comment and tell us, what ancient food tradition do you think we should bring back today? I read every single comment, and your ideas might just inspire our next historical adventure. Until next time, remember, you're not just eating dinner. You're continuing a story that began with the first spark of human innovation around a prehistoric fire.